A shadow in Berlin. A tinny, polyphonic chime, a cruel imitation of a melody, sliced through the benzodiazepine calm. From the floor, Jay felt the vibration more than he heard the sound. His cheek was cold against the carpet, his eyes fixed on the ringing receiver as a distant, irritating pulse. On the other end was Grant, the architect of his life. Grant, the label, the marketing team. They were the ones who had created the music artist Jay in the wake of his band's messy breakup. The real person had been lost in the process. What was left was a product, meticulously designed for a new breed of digitally savvy rebels who treated the unfiltered freedom of the early internet as their native tongue. Rising from the floor, he drifted to the hotel room wall-length window. Below, the lights of Berlin sprawled out, a city caught between its defiant, free-spirited past and an uncertain, reunified future. Winter held the streets in its grip, but the long frost of the Cold War was over. He felt a sudden, sharp affinity for the place, this vast bohemian metropolis lost in its own identity crisis. His gaze shifted from the lights to the glass, meeting the ghost of his own reflection. He had to leave the sterility of this room to get down there and breathe it all in. "Jay, for God's sake, pick up!" Grant's voice, frantic and distorted, erupted from the hotel room's answering machine, shattering the quiet moment. "You missed sound check again. We can't keep covering for you like this, man. The stadium is filling out. The machine is waiting for you." He closed his eyes. Missing sound check had become his only weapon, a small, recurring act of defiance. It was a pattern of resistance he couldn't resist, but it was never enough. Tonight, the pressure felt like a physical weight, crushing the air from his lungs. He needed to breathe that city's air. He grabbed a plain black coat, pulled a beanie down low, and slipped out the service exit, the fire escape groaning as he descended into the city's grimy, authentic embrace. The Berlin night was a chaotic symphony of threat and life. He kept to the shadows, a ghost in his own life story. Drawn in by the chance for stealth, he saw a flickering neon sign above a steep set of stairs leading down. He slipped into the dimly lit basement bar, the air thick with the smell of stale beer and smoke. It was perfect. He slid into a dark corner booth, the worn vinyl cool against his back. As he ducked his head, he worried that the single, fly-specked lamp hanging low over the table might still be enough to illuminate his face. He pulled the beanie lower and hunched his shoulders, trying to shrink into the shadows. As he did, his eyes caught the cuff of the coat he'd grabbed in his haste. Under the dim light, a small logo glittered back at him. Gucci. He cursed under his breath. Hardly the uniform for the inconspicuous. The sanctuary was short-lived. A sudden burst of feedback shrieked through the bar's PA system, followed by a voice, loud and excited, shouting his name, "Jay!" He flinched, instinctively shrinking further into the booth. At the end of the bar, a guy stood at a DJ desk, adjusting his headphones. Then came the sound, a familiar, droning synth intro that made his blood run cold. The heavy bass kicked in, a rhythm he knew in his bones, his latest hit, the anthem of this very tour. The bar began to fill up, and with a growing sense of dread, Jay watched the new arrivals. They were all his age, his look, draped in the same carefully curated angst he sold from the stage. Through the rising din of German conversations, he heard his name repeated again and again, excitedly. The cage had found him. His own voice was the soundtrack to his torment. Jay looked frantically for an exit. He was out in the second, half running up the steps and into the street, gulping the cold air as he fled to the nearest U-Bahn station, taking the first train away, anywhere from here. As the train arrived at the U-Bahn underground station, Jay saw it from the window of his carriage. His own iconic image, a massive 2-meter-tall poster for his latest album and tonight's sold-out tour, plastered onto a station pillar, flashing past in the gloom. The product, staring out at the world, oblivious to the man trying to escape its shadow. He slumped into a corner seat of the rattling carriage, a refugee from his own life. The train stopped at Alexanderplatz, and the doors hissed open. In spilled a wave of loud, excited energy. A group of 4 kids, buzzing with anticipation, clad in baggy jeans and wallet chains. And on their chests, stark against black cotton, was his face. He froze. They were on their way to the concert, to see the product. One of the boys fumbled with a portable CD player, the music skipping with the train's lurching movement. "I can't believe we are finally seeing him," one of them exclaimed, a voice full of genuine awe. They talked about the songs, the brand, the icon. They were worshiping a ghost, a corporate phantom, and the real breathing man was sitting 2 feet away from them, utterly invisible. He braced for the inevitable explosion of recognition, but it never came. Their eyes slid right over him. As the train pulled into the Olympia Stadion stop, his fans surged towards the doors. They left him behind. Jay let out a long, shuddering breath, a sigh of the purest relief. The incredible, absurd truth washed over him. The product was so powerful, it had completely eclipsed the person. This was the freedom he craved. The realization illuminated his path. He had to push on. He disembarked at the next stop, stepping out onto a quiet platform, the rumble of the departing train fading. Even in this hard-won freedom, a new loneliness settled over him. He was still separated, silent in solitude, a shadow in Berlin. He surfaced in a part of the city that seemed to have been forgotten by time. The roar faded, replaced by a profound silence. A fine, powdery snow had begun to fall. The only light came from a single, sputtering sodium lamp that cast a lonely amber cone onto the ground. He stood in the middle of the street, breathing the cold, sharp air, feeling a peace he hadn't known in his entire adult life. A low, scraping sound approached. A tram, nearly empty, glided past on an adjacent street, its one headlight cutting a swath through the falling snow. He watched as its wheels sliced through the thin layer of virgin snow on the tracks, leaving behind 2 perfect parallel black lines. They were stark and absolute against the white, a clear path leading away from the city's glow. He marched, head down, following this newly cut route into the darkness. He felt a strange sense of calm watching the freshly cut lines, their simplicity almost lyrical. There's a song in this, a fleeting thought of his craft sharpening into focus. Yes, there's a song in this. A battle won on the frozen ground, the war draws on with a silent sound. For you bohemians, you free spirits bound, living in the shadows of this town. Never surrender your rebel call, don't let the darkness make you fall. Living in the shadows of Berlin.
Finally, he turned. Feeling no resentment, he was ready to trek back to base. He began to follow the tram lines back the way he came, toward the city's distant glow. His eyes drifted past the tracks, catching a silent, rhythmic pulse of blue light in the distance. A police car. He mused that it may be Grant's frantic security detail, already scouring the city looking for him. The sight was a momentary distraction, a faint tug from the world he'd left behind. A twig snapped nearby. He turned. A figure detached itself from a dark doorway, followed by a second. They were young, their faces hard. "You are lost?" the first one asked, a smirk on his lips. "Geld geben," the second one grunted. "Give money, now." Jay held up his empty hands, a slow, tired breath escaping his lips. "I don't have anything." The irony was so thick it was almost laughable. He was a multimillionaire whose name could move fortunes, yet he didn't have a single coin in his pocket. The only thing of value on him was the golden keycard for the 5-star prison he'd just fled. He would have given it to them gladly, this useless rectangle of plastic that was a key to everything and nothing all at once. Here, on this street, it was worthless. How ironic. The smirk on the first man's face vanished. His hand moved with a speed that defied the cold. There was a sudden flash of silver that blinded Jay for a split second. A hard shove sent him stumbling backward. His knee hit the cobblestones with a sickening thud, and he felt a sharp, searing heat in his side. He looked down. A dark crimson flower was blooming on the perfect white snow. As his vision began to tunnel, he heard a sharp gasp from the second figure. A hand pointed a trembling finger, a fading voice, a choked whisper of disbelief. "Hey, Shiza, do you know who that is?" The figure who held the blade quickly patted down Jay's pockets, finding nothing but the keycard, which he tossed aside in disgust. With a final panic glance at the growing crimson stain on the snow, both figures scattered, vanishing back into the shadows they had emerged from. From above, the scene was a stark monochrome tableau. The pristine white canvas of the snow, broken by the dark, trailing footsteps leading away from the fallen star. The solitary, unmoving black figure lay still, stark against the purity. A shadow in Berlin.